asked you, and this is one of the things that I'm doing now. I'm asking in advance to my guests about three most favorite books and how it kind of why do you think they're the best ones, and that we could suggest our listeners to maybe look into them as well. What was the first two books you mentioned?
The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Yeah, that nice title.
And Midnight Library.
Yeah, and the third one was the Atomic Habits, which I read also quite recently, and we can talk about Atomic Habits. But before we do that, tell me about those other first two books.
Okay, so The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. The reason it's my favorite book is I wasn't really reading much outside of, like research for my, fitness coaching. I wasn't really reading a lot of books up until then, a couple of years ago. And someone told me, it's like, you should read this book. It's there's lots of profanity, like heaps of swear words. You'll love it, and it's an easy read. And I was like, righto. Like I just got to get started. I know once I start, I'll just continue. So I picked up that book and loved it. It's there's a lot of F-bombs in there, and one of my favorite words.
I mean, the title is very kind of self-explanatory.
Exactly.
That's what it's all about. But is there like a very something specific where you can remember that kind of maybe talk to you, or maybe kind of...
Yeah, so like over the past couple of years, I've just sort of gone on a journey myself of not giving a fuck. And if you've read the book, it's not about just not caring about anything and like not giving a shit.
But it's about the things what you actually are important.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So like in a summary, it's like find the things you care about and don't give a fuck about
and
anything
then focus
else.
on them. There's actually a very good book which called Don't Sweat Little Things.
Okay.
Or Don't Sweat Small Things.
Yeah.
That is a very similar concept to that.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Okay. And the second book was?
Midnight Library. So I read that when I got here in Bali, actually. And normally I like to read, like self-help, educational books.
Yeah.
So,
but you get tired of that shit.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, because so many of those books are so similar. Okay, you guys covered this already.
That's the thing, They get their message across over 300 pages of saying the same shit. Yeah, some books I've started and it's like, oh, mate, this is dead.
Yeah.
Midnight Library is good because it starts out pretty grim. And, it's about this girl who's, considering committing suicide because, her life's just gone to shit. And then she does try to commit, and she gets into this midnight library, and it's, she's in a coma state, whatever. And the midnight library is, the idea is each book in the library is a different life. So whilst she's in this midnight library, there's a, what do you call the library clerk? Like,
whoever works there in charge of that. Silence.
Yeah, that
bitch.
Yeah, that lady, the bookkeeper, whatever.
Yeah, bookkeeper. She does the bookkeeping. I love that. She's the bookkeeper.
So she's in it, and she sort of leads her through this library of potentials, and she puts her into this life. So she's able to go into it, and sort of, long story short, as she goes across, she just starts to realize that life is still worth living, and there's there's so many outcomes and so many possibilities in your life that the one you're currently in, even though it may seem like it's crushing you and there's no other way out, if you do really try and find another possibility, there's so many other avenues you can go down in life.
That's awesome.
So
yeah, I like that concept. And in this podcast, we already mentioned it when I was doing it with Chris. I mentioned this concept, and Chris fucking hated it. So basically, the concept of when the frog jumps in the milk. So, and some frogs would just give up and they basically drown. But this frog was continuing, like, kind of moving around until it churned into butter. Okay. So it's set in the butter and jumped out.
Yeah.
So I think that story represents that don't give up, work hard, eventually things gonna happen, right? Mm-hmm. But there's the other thing about, there's the other story about this fly which hits against the glass trying to get out. It's fly, bee, wasp, whatever, when they're stuck in a house and they just hit against the glass. No matter how hard you're gonna hit and how long you're gonna hit, you're never gonna get through. Mm-hmm. But what you can try to do is different paths, find a little hole and get out. Yeah. So that's what the book, what you were saying about is like there's other options, look for those other options. And I'm gonna patent the story about the fly because I never heard it from anyone before. I just think it's fucking mine. I've been, grew up in a farm and I've seen flies hitting against the window. Not that it's just a farm thing, but here you go. And the third book you mentioned, Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, I think it's a really great concept of, like we talk about, so you need to get the good habits. And one of my favorite books is called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Mm-hmm. So they were Stephen Covey. So he talks about how you can, having these habits instead of like religious people have 7 commandments or whatever, that's how they live their life. Yeah. But also that if you have those 7 habits or whatever habits you have, then you can just change it so drastically. But Atomic Habits is just even little things you change can just make that drastic difference. Yeah. So what was your kind of take on it?
It resonated with me a lot because it gave me insight on how I could work with my clients. Because a lot of like fitness, yourself, it just comes down to habits. And once you start building on the habits and you create the discipline, then those days where you can't be fucked, you still do it anyway. So I really like the book because I was able to apply, these things to my clients. So how to set yourself up and get rid of shitty habits and, put barriers there. So it's not so easy. And, and then on the other side of that, start the changes you want to make, start putting those clues or those hints right in front of you. And then, the shoes at the door, for example, you have to make the decision to step over them to not try and make that change anymore. So it's like, yeah, I like those little things, man. And Atomic Habits, yeah.
I like it. So yeah, they were talking about those little things you put in front of you. I always put chocolate in front of me, so I eat it. Instead of hiding it, it's just there. Yeah. You eat it. So anytime your girlfriend comes by, you always put a condom on a pillow. It's just that this is the thing we need to do. That's the habit.
Yeah, anchoring the environment.
Yeah, exactly. And just put the candles on. Yeah. But I like that book, the way it started. This guy who, basically the story goes, this guy got a very nasty injury playing baseball. And it was a lot of from all around this environment saying oh, you're never going to make it and you're never going to succeed kind of thing. But he was habits, what he was doing, going early to bed, doing his extra work on his homework and whatever. And training all the time, training, and he got to the point where he was back in the baseball team and all that. And the thing what happened with him, he was actually smacked in the head with a baseball bat. Did he?
I can't remember.
Yeah, so that's